I want to begin this conversation with an anecdote. So I was talking to a friend, and he's in IT sector. He's been home. He's been working from home since, ever since the pandemic started, and now he's a little anxious about going to the office. And it's a feeling of a lot of people, those who started going to office, and many who will start going to office in 2022. They're a little anxious about this feeling is what we'll address right in the opening. I'm Arun Singh. A very warm welcome to this special conversation. We have with us Dr. Sameer Parakh, who is a psychiatrist with Fortis Healthcare. A very warm welcome. What do you have to say to address this anxiety that a lot of working professionals are facing?
Arun, we change, we adapt to change, then we get accustomed to that. And then when again a change comes, we go through a bit of transitions, which may bring a little bit of anxiety. Way before COVID, a lot of young working people would come and tell me, I wish I had some work from home. I wish I had some me time. I wish, you know, I could spend time with family. What is this life? I start early morning and late night, commuting, so on and so forth. Then COVID happened. Then we all had a phase. I wish I could go out. I'm spending too much time at home. I'm now totally bored. What do I do? And now, when we are again restarting, how will I go back to that place? What will happen? Will I be able to adjust? These are all that most of us have gone through. It's natural, it's human. We adapted. Now we have to readapt. I think the way here is rhythm and routine of life. Make sure that your day-to-day routine does not get impacted even when you are going through these thoughts. Second, be very, very spot on when it comes to your social engagements. Keep talking to your friends and colleagues. You'll realize that you're not alone. We're all in the same boat. And it's also important that it'll give you a lot of positivity. Make sure your day-to-day tasks and productivity continue to be on track so you don't have piling up of work happening which will add on the pressure. Take time out for yourself and family. Indulge in some hobbies, some creativity, some yoga, pranayam, physical activity, music, plants, pets. Fill your day with spaces which give you joy and you'll be able to pass through this. Just give yourself time. We need a little bit of time to realign ourselves.
Yeah, please keep in mind that one of the preventive measures of COVID-19 is physical distancing and not social distancing. So you can continue engaging socially, whether through your devices or otherwise. Great point there, Doctor. Now let's move on to another set of working professionals, and a lot of them have faced job losses or cut in their salary. So what would you say to address that?
This year's theme, as you know, for the World Mental Health Day is mental health in an unequal world. So it's like that we were all in the same storm, but some had submarines and some had large ships and some had lifeboats, but some were trying to swim in the entire tempest by themselves. And that is the inequality in its own way. There are two answers to what you've said. One answer is that the self, which means me, I need to not let my self-belief be affected because an external factor impacted me. My education is same, my personality is same, I can be the same hardworking person that I've always been. I can get my success back the moment I'll get my opportunity back. Because what I achieved till now was also me. So don't let that self-belief go and just continue and remember COVID will be gone, we'll be here, you'll be here, your skills will be here. But it also brings a important perspective for all policymakers or all thinkers or planners that what do we do about social, financial security for people across the world? That we need to bring equality and equity in a way that people who struggle are given societal support at the right time in the right way to help them tide over a crisis until things get better. And I think that's a question for all of us.
Okay, coming back to work from home, a lot of us are on our devices. When we wake up, we check our smartphone, and then we are on our laptop. Once the work is finished, and we are again on our smartphone. Of course, we have to, because all of that engagement or all of that interaction is on our device. But that has also let many of us think that am I addicted? Like I'm one of those because I think have I got addicted to devices because I'm in this work from home scenario or I'm so much on my device.
Be smarter than the phone. So that we say the smart user using a phone and not the user using a smartphone. And all you people, young people especially, switch off your phone when you go to sleep. Halfway in your sleep when you wake up, you don't need to check and see has there been a social media post and do I need to like it. You don't need to. You sleep when there
Or
is
have I
sleep time.
have I got 2 more likes now? Let me just check.
Oh God, I feel so lucky, Arun, that I finished my 12th. By the time there was no social media, no phones. I mean, these are mobile phones. No, actually, no internet, right? For us, it was good old neighborhood friends, good old school friends. Those friendships have lasted so much meaning, so much sport and creativity. I just feel bad for your generation at times and what have been done to you. But I think all of us need to appreciate that it's been difficult. Yes, the digital interface has been remarkable to help us tide over. Imagine what would have happened in the previous pandemic. Here, you at least had the opportunity to stay connected with your distant relatives, get news, be entertained if you like something, use social media, and people use social media positively as well to reach out and help and support and be connected. So all that also happened. I think the right approach is take regular digital breaks. About 40-45 minutes and then take a break, take a stroll, uh, talk to someone, spend time with family, indulge in mindful activities, meditation, relaxation, music, creative art, expressive art, pets, plants, whatever you like. And don't allow you to have purposeless digital interface. That's very important. So if you are picking up your phone, it needs to be for a purpose, not random scrolling. That should not be happening. Do that and just keep taking breaks. And like I said, at least 1 hour before your sleep time, switch it off. And don't be in a hurry to switch it on. It's okay. The world is going to be right there where you left it.
What I've recently started doing is putting an app limit so I don't overuse any single app. So I have put limit to it, so it just keeps alerting me, and that's how I keep it under check. But how you feel about younger generation is exactly how I feel about kids because they are exposed to this all the time, and of course, more because of the pandemic. Now, let's talk about kids also. What would be your tips to parents who are finding it difficult to not let their kids go out? They're not having any social circle of their own, and these are crucial years for them. This would have built their personality absolutely differently, but now they are all locked up in homes. What would be your tips for these young parents?
I think first let's empathize. Let's understand that it's been tough on kids. They've also been indoor. They've been suddenly started doing digital education. Hours into digital interface drastically increased. Play, outdoor activities, sport, friend time became less. So empathize and give them a bit more space, a bit more window. If they are having a little bit of a tantrum here and there, a little bit of a mood issue here and there, then let it be. Reduce over criticism, reduce your do's and do nots, spend quality time into what they like. Be a good role model. So, for example, while you are having a family meal, don't use gadgets. Board games, be connected. Connect your children with grandparents, extended family. That's our culture, that's our root, that's our strength. And one more thing, encourage them to keep talking to their friends. Earlier we used to tell them that don't be on your phone for so long and why are you talking for hours. But now, if you feel that your child's not spent enough time talking to their friends, encourage them to make a call because peer relationships are one of the strongest pillars of a growing child.
Okay, since we're talking about kids, now let's address mental disorder as well. UNICEF has come out with a report, and it's more than $1.2 billion since age 10 to 19 lived in the world in 2020. Estimates indicate that more than 13% of them had a mental disorder. Now, I know every single year we witness a report like this, and we know that mental disorders exist among adolescents and teens. What do we do about it?
I think you put it very correctly. This year's data, if you'll compare to last year's data or even the previous year's data, you'll realize it's always been there. It's not suddenly come up. COVID has not brought mental health issues only. They were there. Yes, they've gone through a drastic change because life circumstances change. But the problem has always been there. Let's look at solution. First, understand there is a deficit of experts. So we need to also look at a lot of preventive work. So life skills integrated in schools, psychological first aid for teachers, parents and peers, mental health curriculum, and we've been doing mental health curriculum with various schools, and more schools need to become a part of mental health curriculum where you help through the course of years, through teachers training children, help them understand mental illness, understand the importance of mental health, destigmatize, create a positive experience, well-being culture in the classroom, develop resistance and life skills. That mental health curriculum needs to be a part of all schools. We also ensure that teachers should get basic counseling skills because all schools do not have counselors. We have a deficit, so it's important that counseling is given by teachers, and then you integrate schools with external experts as and when required, work closely with parents. So this kind of an approach we need to have. And then, yes, encourage help-seeking behavior also. And collectively, the society needs to change the way conversations around mental health happen, that nobody should hesitate to seek help. Even today, worldwide, 75% of people who do not seek help but they want help is when they feel that they'll be stigmatized. So if we can change that, that will be an impact and a thought process for all role models and public figures and communicators and media houses that keep having conversations on mental health.
Of course. Okay. So, of course, working on that, we are doing this live and at the same time taking the conversation ahead. We had also promoted this on Instagram and we got a lot of replies. People had their own queries. I want you to address those. It would be great if you can briefly answer all of these. The first is why most Indian schools don't have counselors. And somewhere I think it's not fair to put this question to you that why Indian schools don't have enough counselors. But
the ratio of mental health experts in low and middle income countries to high income countries ranges from 2 in lakh to 17 lakh. So the deficit of experts is a reality, and that is obviously changing year after year as more experts are there, more training happen, and there should be more seats, more player colleges having psychology, more medical colleges having more seats for psychiatry, other allied specialities. So that is already happening. By the time that deficit will be filled in, this is going to be a gap. So rather than asking why is it not there, our question should be what can we do? Like I just said, basic counseling skill for teachers, utilizing the teacher communities, rapport, trust, approach with children, valuing their mental health, and at the same time, like I said earlier, mental health curriculum, psychological first aid and life skills in schools.
Okay, next question. What's the best thing to do when you're going through a panic attack and you are alone?
Immediately talk to someone. Talk to someone, do some breathing exercises, distract yourself, see what is a thought that's bothering you, try and counter the thought. But if this kind of an episode is a one-off thing, was triggered by some stress, talk to your well-wishers, and if you are able to resolve it, it's fine. But if it is happening as a pattern that you are repeatedly having these episodes and it's having a negative impact on your life and you keep thinking about it, then it could be panic disorder, which is a mental ailment. It's a kind of an anxiety disorder, which would require expert intervention, whether it is through psychotherapy, medications, or both.
Okay. How to differentiate between mental health issues and just laziness and tantrums and other normal things?
We all have tantrums. We've all thrown tantrums sometime or the other. You'll ask your parents, they'll give you a whole story of tantrums that you've had over the years and probably still continue to have. You'll You'll talk to your colleagues and sometimes they may tell you they are very lazy, does not get up on time, so on and so forth. We will all have this as long as it doesn't become a pattern. You will have off days. You will have some days when you don't feel up to it. It's okay to take a step back and be back at it, and it's fine. Laziness and tantrums are traits that all of us have. As long as we don't overdo them, it's fine.
Mhm. Another question: I feel depressed and anxious with every small thing. What to do? Can't handle myself.
See, sometimes we use the word depressed as an English term, right? So if you are feeling sad and worried when or low when you're bothered by things, that's one thing. But when we say depressed, let's remember depression is amongst the single largest illness in the world. 300 million people globally suffer from it. It happens across age groups. Depression is when you feel low, sad, almost throughout the day. You have loss of pleasure, loss of interest, you have thoughts like hopeless, helpless, worthless. You feel fatigue, concentration issues, sleep appetite changes. And if this, you don't lose interest in life. If these stay for about 2 weeks, then it could be a medical concern. It's important to see a doctor. So that's what depression is. Now let's look at the angle of if you tend to get worried about triggers. You need to look at how you can solve that trigger. If it is not a consistent pattern, and if it's just about you getting worried, whether it is about uncertainty, about change, about your work, you talk to someone. Most of our problems increase when we don't open up and share. I've been saying this for a while, unmute yourself. So if you unmute yourself and your feelings and your thoughts, you'll be able to find solutions.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Is excessive fear of bad situations also a red line symptom of depression?
So again, but depression, I just mentioned what it is. So anything excessive or anything which impairs your functions of life, your occupational functioning, academic functioning, social functioning, your functioning of the self, then it becomes a red flag and you need to take an expert's opinion. At the same time, if you are worried about things that others are also worried about and it is not having an impact on you, and you are able to go through your day, go through your social interactions, feel good about days, have a sense of positive cheerfulness, then it's fine.
Okay. After losing my mom to COVID, I'm depressed, is what this user writes. And I think we should also address that dealing with the grief of losing a loved one.
See, we need to understand this. Loss is a very personal experience. Grief is a very personal experience. None of us can advise somebody else, do this, do that. Time takes its own course. I think what is important is if around you, around me, around any one of us, any one of you listening, if you see somebody going through a bereavement, a grief, who experienced a loss, be there for them. Social support, friends, family, colleagues, neighbors, that's the key, that's the strength. Don't let the individual feel that they are by themselves. And rest, like I said, what time does, what time does.
Okay. Is there any relation between vitamin B12 level and depression or mental health? And before they write this, they've written sorry. So I think they're a little skeptical about the question they have put.
No, never be apologetic about anything you say as long as it doesn't harm. So, oh yes, if any one of you young people, if you have ever trolled, cyberbullied, written a negative message, written not a nice word, be sorry and don't repeat it. But don't hesitate to ask questions. Don't hesitate to talk about mental health. In fact, the more we talk about mental health, the better it is. Understand biopsychosocial model of mental ailments. Biology, which is bio, which has genetics, which will have some of these aspects like you mentioned, nutritional deficiencies, also endocrinal factors, and most importantly, chemical imbalances or as we call them neurotransmitter imbalances like relationship of serotonin in depression, dopamine in schizophrenia. There is an impairment that happens That's the treatment. Also, you rectify it using medications. Psychology, which is my personality, my interface, my traits, my thinking pattern, my behavioral pattern. Here, the treatment is cognitive behavioral therapy and other forms of psychotherapy as a treatment. Social, which is my environment, my support system, and you engage them as a part of treatment. So, biopsychosocial model both for cause and for treatment of mental illness.
Okay. How to deal with so much uncertainty is the last question, and I think can be our concluding note as well.
Life has always been uncertain. We plan, but how do you plan? You focus on today and tomorrow. You focus on what is achievable, immediate goal that you can. You have a distant mark for a long term where you want to be, which can be a guiding force. That's what has always been the case. Yes, last year and a half, we've experienced uncertainty at a whole different level. Illness, finance, job, academics, colleges, family, normalization of life. So there was a lot more of anxiety around that uncertainty. I feel all of us need to, as we are hopefully at the last leg of COVID and soon we should be out of it, all of us in the world. I think it's very important to have a here and now focus. Focus on your today. Have a brilliant today.
Okay.
And then let's go to tomorrow. Have a great tomorrow. Add these todays, a distant tomorrow would be nice.
And I think that would be my biggest takeaway from this conversation, that focus on here and now. Thank you so very much, Dr. Parekh, for such enlightening answers. Thank you for being patient. And for those watching or listening to this, thanks for joining in. But keep watching Banega Swasth India for all the updates and conversations like this. I'm Arun Singh. With this, it's goodbye from my side.